Transmission: every animal weaponized by the military begins. The main folly of man is attempting to tame the untamable. You take something as wild and free as a dolphin and make it go attack enemy divers. You take something as languid and carefree as a cat, and you turn it into a walking microphone, implanting a battery inside of it. I mean, this seems unhinged. B-movie spy schlock. But these truly were real, official military projects, where governments around the world spent millions of our dollars trying to turn animals into weapons. We're talking about everything today, from mine-detecting rats to bat bombs designed to burn down cities. It's gonna get weird, so we might as well get started with a look back. As you probably guessed, this whole idea of using animals for warfare, well, it's nothing new. Before we had tanks and jets, the biggest, most powerful weapon on the battlefield might have just been a really large animal. The Carthaginian general Hannibal marched a huge army with dozens of war elephants across the snowy Alps. The elephants were living tanks, used to break through enemy lines and, yeah, of course, scare the life out of soldiers who had never seen an animal that big. There are also some really old legends told about some ancient Greeks or Romans who would light pigs on fire and then send them running toward the enemy, and yeah, of course, chaos would ensue. The veracity of that story, it's hard to pin down, honestly, but it is something that I think about often. The squeals. At night, they haunt me. Always the screaming. They never stop screaming. Oh, sorry, yeah, I went somewhere there for a minute. The idea of using animals is ancient, okay? The methods did inevitably get more insane as we marched down the path of quote-unquote progress. But I guess we could start off with something grounded, something that most people will understand: living logistics. Not every animal project gets to be a weird, sci-fi driven fever dream, unfortunately. Some are just a matter of pure practicality, you know? For centuries before a Jeep was ever a thing, the military relied on living, breathing, all-terrain vehicles. That would be mules, donkeys, let's throw camels in there for good measure too. And yes, these three amigos are the unsexy, unsung heroes of military logistics. They still are in some really rocky, mountainous regions like Afghanistan. These pack animals can get to places that no truck or modern machine possibly can. They are basically the ultimate pack animals. You just can't beat them. Elephants. We mentioned ancient history elephants, but even in times as recent as the Vietnam War, elephants were used for heavy lifting and logging. They could pull huge trees and equipment through the dense jungle, doing a job that no machine could easily handle in such a difficult environment. Horses. The animal that gets most of the glory, honestly, throughout military history is the horse. Of course. For centuries, the horse was the key component of any army's power and speed. With enough horses, you can move and attack more quickly, which of course made them a deciding force in battles for thousands of years. Modern horses still serve an important role for military and police patrols, both for stealth and mobility. The pigeons. Pigeons are amazing messengers, as you may know. A message gets attached to their leg, and after delivery, they'll fly back to their home coop, all by themselves. Civilians used them too before email was a thing, you know. But there was one famous military pigeon who bears mentioning in this video, and that is Cher Ami, who delivered a message that saved nearly 200 American soldiers even after being shot. Yeah, I guess shooting the messenger never really goes out of style. Neither do pigeons! They're simple, cheap, low-tech, and incredibly effective, and we will see them again. Psychological sabotage. Not every animal was used for pure practicality, of course. Some were used in secret, bizarre projects, designed not for brute force, but for chaos and sabotage, like mosquito bombs. Mosquitoes do seem to be really good at spreading disease, so some big brains got together and were just like, well, hey, why not just let them do that? During the Cold War, the US military looked into using disease-carrying mosquitoes as a biological weapon. Millions of infected mosquitoes would be dropped on an enemy city, and it would cause a terrible disease outbreak. In the end, this was more a threat than reality, but being menaced with malaria does feel like it would be extremely effective. Almost as effective as bat bombs. No, this is not a holdover from that terrible Adam West cartoon. This was a real military project by the name of X-ray. During World War II, a dentist and part-time inventor had the crazy idea to use bat bombs on Japan. Basically, millions of bats would be dropped in these special cooled bomb casings, which made them super sleepy, and once it was dropped, they'd wake up and fly out and look for a dark place to hide, likely inside of the Japanese buildings made mostly of wood and paper, and after a few hours, the bombs would go off, starting thousands of fires at once. The project was approved and tested, but during a trial run, some bats escaped, and, well, they burned down an entire US Army air base. Whoopsie. It's almost like they knew, if you really think about it. Like those bats had this primal, unconscious knowledge that the greatest darkness wasn't off in some distant country. It was in the hearts of the people who would strap bombs to them. The people who look into the face of a furry, ugly little innocent and whose first thought is, I am going to incinerate you and you will help me burn down half an island country. But probably actually they're just being silly bats. Project Sea Lion. Proof positive that nobody ever learns anything. The Germans had this plan to use sea lions for sabotage during World War II. The idea was to train them to attach bombs to enemy ships in harbors, and the project never really got off the ground because the animals were too difficult to train for what was essentially a very hard job. The idea wasn't totally insane, however, and the US Navy did take notice, which transitions us nicely into secret agent animals. Spies, scouts, detectives. War cannot be won without good current information. Enter dolphin marines. So, okay, yeah. The Germans, technically they did it first, but the Americans, we did it right. America! Woo! Yeah! The U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program has been training bottlenose dolphins and California sea lions since the 1960s. They're trained to mark underwater mines and enemy divers. They can also find and recover lost equipment from the seafloor. And the sea lions do have a leg up on the dolphins here because of their exceptional eyesight and hearing underwater, which means they're not just cute faces, they're highly trained military operatives ready to kill, or at least attach a tracker to you and then the Navy will come and scoop you up. Pigeon photography. Oh, the humble pigeon returns, and this time his message is 1,000 words long. Because it's a picture, you see? So during the First World War, a tiny automatic camera with a timer was affixed to a pigeon's chest, and then the pigeon would go fly over enemy territory, and the camera would take pictures every few seconds. Pigeons would provide serial photos for spying before planes were common or good at that job. Yes, just the humble pigeon, continuing to serve. It's sort of sad to me that now they're treated as vermins, although the cats are trying to help in their way. Project Acoustic Kitty. The wildest spy story of all belongs to the CIA. Of course it does. Back during the Cold War, they came up with Project Acoustic Kitty. They would surgically implant a microphone and transmitter inside of a living cat to spy on the Soviet Union's embassy in Washington. How did all that turn out for them? Well, on the first mission, they let the cat out near the embassy, and it was promptly hit by a taxi. Mission failed in 5 minutes. That source is unverified, but I understand. I wouldn't include it in the official report either, CIA. It was a bizarre and expensive failure that only serves to further prove the folly of mankind. Exploration and testing. Some animals don't fight. They're conscripted to act as brave pioneers in dangerous new frontiers, whether that be through space or through a minefield. Rats as mine detectors. While most of these programs are from the past, this one is a modern success story. Organizations like APOPO have been training a special breed of African giant pouched rats to detect landmines and unexploded ordnance. These rats have an incredible sense of smell and are too light to set off the mines. A rat can clear a 200 square meter area in about 20 minutes, a job that would take a human with a metal detector up to 4 days to accomplish. Monkeys in space. In the earliest days of the space race, the biggest question wasn't how do we build a rocket, but instead it was, can a living creature even survive space travel at all? So the US and the Soviet Union decided the best way to find out was to send up some animals. In the late 1940s and 50s, a series of dogs, monkeys, and chimpanzees were sent into space. The most famous were Abel Baker and Ham the Astro Chimp. They were trained to push buttons and pull levers inside their capsule, showing that a living creature could not only survive the powerful G-forces of the launch, but also perform tasks in zero-G. Their successful missions gave scientists the confidence they needed to finally send a human into space. These animals were true pioneers, risking their lives to pave the way for human astronauts, whether they realized it or not. They aren't the only ones who sacrificed, however. Furry smart bombs. Yeah, this is some of the heaviest parts. Animals that are destined for a one-way trip. You hate to see it. These stories are some of the most heartbreaking, I'll be honest, and I will treat them with the reverence that they deserve. Let's start out with the Soviet anti-tank dogs. While dogs today still serve in many military and law enforcement capacities, back in World War II, we find the Soviet army desperate to stop German tanks. And so there was a bright idea hatched. Why not use dogs? Anti-tank dogs! They would starve the dogs for days, and then train them to find food placed under a tank. This taught the dogs that the smell and sound of a tank meant a meal. You throw a bomb into the mix and yeah, the whole plan starts to come together. I mean, some might call it a plan. But in the execution phase, it was a complete disaster. The dogs were trained on Soviet tanks, which smelled of diesel, but the German tanks ran on gasoline and smelled different, so the dogs got onto the battlefield and were confused. They'd often run back to the friendly Soviet tanks, looking for just a little bit of that food. Oopsie. Needless to say, the program was a tragic failure, not only in its logic, but in basic ethics. There was another lesser-known plan to train dogs to carry mines to areas and then return to their handlers, and while this was designed to save the animal's life, it still faced a lot of the same challenges, with the dogs getting scared or confused. Have you ever seen your dog on New Year's with all the fireworks? Yeah, it's basically that times a million. Poor little fella. Project Pigeon. The glorious pigeon is back once more. To explain Project Pigeon, I want you to imagine a missile. Now put a pigeon in the nose cone. The pigeon is the pilot of the missile now. I'm not joking. A famous American psychologist named B.F. Skinner tried to do exactly this during World War II with something called Project Pigeon. A small screen would show a target, like an enemy ship, and every time the pigeon pecked at the ship on screen, it would get a small food reward. Its pecking would then send a signal to the missile's fins, guiding it to the target. It was a bizarre but brilliant plan to use the pigeon's natural ability to track things. And this project was successful during lab tests. The pigeons were excellent at guiding missiles. So why did it fall apart? Well, just because radar got invented, essentially. A simple machine could now do what it took a highly trained bird to do, and yeah, the project was over after that. Poor pigeons. They appeared in every category and never got their day in the sun. This video is dedicated to you, pigeons. I'm gonna go outside and feed a pigeon today. And while I do it, I'm gonna ask myself, is this the end of an era? Short answer to that, yeah, just might be. Most of these programs have been phased out. Why? Technology. Some people will say ethics, but that was clearly never a concern before we had the technology, so I'm throwing that out the window. It's just a lot more simple this way. You don't gotta feed a drone, Robots don't get scared by explosions. A computer-guided missile won't get distracted by a snack of cornmeal. Technology is more reliable, more predictable, and yes, indeed more ethical. Although I still think that part is just happenstance. With the way it seems to me, really, with the development of AI and robotics, maybe all we're doing is just building a bunch of metal animals for the military anyway, you know? Look at how cute that little dog-shaped weapons platform is. If not friend, then why friend-shaped? Duh. Anyway, join us next time for a rundown of every fast food controversy that I could possibly dredge up within the nebulous time period I've allotted myself. You will never eat at Taco Bell again. But until we meet once more, stay anomalous, stay deviant. Transmission ends. Moonpunk out.